Have you ever had that quiet, nagging feeling like there was more to life than what you currently have been experiencing? Like you were made for more? More than the daily grind, more than just going through the motions, more than just existing. What if the life you're living right now isn't the life you were designed for? What if you were made for more? Welcome to the Remarkable Life Podcast, where we explore what it means to live intentionally, lead boldly, love deeply, and leave a legacy that matters. I'm your host, Warren Curry. I'm a pastor, entrepreneur, husband, father of six, and a man on a mission to help you live boldly, lead confidently, and build something that lasts. Each week, I'll share real conversations, biblical insights, personal stories, and practical strategies to help you become everything God designed you to be. You weren't made to settle. You were made to live a remarkable life. Subscribe now and let's grow together. It's time to stop settling for average and start stepping into the life you were created to live. Well, welcome back to the Remarkable Life Podcast, where we talk faith, leadership, purpose, and living a life that truly matters. I'm your host, Warren Curry. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Remarkable Life Podcast. This podcast is about helping you to live with intention, to live and lead your life with purpose, and to live a life that truly matters. This episode, this is the 18th episode of the Remarkable Life Podcast. I'm super excited because season one for me is the 20th episode. And 20 episodes, once I hit that 20th episode, that will conclude the first season, the first installment of this inaugural podcast launch for me, which started last year in 2025. And so looking forward to being able to share these final handful of episodes with you guys over the next few weeks as we are now into 2026. The last three episodes, 15, 16, and 17, they did a trilogy on decision making. I encourage you to go out and to check out that content. It's on my YouTube channel. It's also on a Substack platform. For those that are watching the video version of this podcast, you'll see the link on the screen, warrencurryjr.substack.com. I encourage you guys to go subscribe. It's free to subscribe. And so that you can get all the notifications, emails, push notifications, and the like when new content is released on the platform. I don't just share these podcast episodes, I also share different articles, writings, thought pieces, so on and so forth. And it's all designed around, or been intentionally designed around, helping your life to become more remarkable than it already is. And so 15, 16, and 17, I shared a lot of different information, helpful insights on decision making, the importance of that. Our lives are the sum total of the decisions that we make. And so if you struggle with decision making, if you have anxiety and fear around it, if you've been the kind of person in times past where were just simply afraid because you had made decisions in the past that didn't turn out the way that you like or you thought that it would, it ended up harming you, harming other people. I would encourage you to go and to download those episodes and take a look into it, dive into it. Episode 15, 16, and 17 on the Remarkable Life Podcast. But today is launching episode 18, and the final three episodes in the first season are going to be dealing with the topic of warfare in the workplace. Okay. Warfare in the workplace. And so this first one that I'm sharing, I don't know if I'm super excited about it because of all of the experience that I personally have with this particular topic in the workplace, because y'all know folk be tripping. People have issues. People have problems. I'm talking about your colleagues, your coworkers, your subordinates, if you're in some kind of managerial or supervisory position, people that you directly report to, they be ego tripping and they have issues. And so it is inevitable that you are going to experience at some point. You might already have, you might be in the midst of experiencing stuff like this right now, warfare in the workplace. And so I want to share with you guys, why it happens, a few ways how it happens, and then how you can counteract when stuff like that happens. Paul the Apostle, who's the author of many books in the New Testament, one of the books that he wrote was in the book of Ephesians, and chapter 6 in that book, he said that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. He was talking about a warfare or opposition that we have. It's not necessarily with humans, even though it's flesh and blood or humans that we see, those that are in front of us, those that we have an argument with, or the arguments get elevated. Sometimes they they devolve into actual physical altercations. But Paul writes and he says, I know that you argue with people and you see these people and all of this. He said, but the reality is it's not that person that you're having issues with is actually not that person. It's a spirit or spirits behind that person that is influencing their behavior. So he writes and says that the weapons of our warfare, they're not carnal, but they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And I'm sorry. Uh he talks about I think I'm in Second Corinthians 10, 1 through 5 is what I'm talking about, which also deals with this topic and matter of warfare. Um but he's referencing, he said we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, we wrestle against principalities, powers, rulers of darkness in this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. I heard this preacher say years ago, we are talking about, when you're talking about warfare and spiritual opposition, you are talking about principalities that are influencing human personalities. And it's just a reality of it, right? And everyone that you work with, even if you work in a quote unquote Christian environment, you work at a Christian school, you work at on the church staff or something, that does not mean that your issues or problems or conflicts are going to be less because you work with quote unquote religious people. Sometimes that can actually be worse than if you work with irreligious or people who don't profess to follow any kind of God or have no kind of faith. Sometimes you can actually get along better in the workplace because you have a lot of similar shared life values, not just religious values. And so hopefully maybe I'll get a chance to get into some of that over the course of these next 3 episodes, where really designed to try to empower you, help you gain an edge in the workplace, because we spend so much of our lives working in a job. And even if you don't, even if you're not an employer or employed, where you're not an employee but you're actually an employer, still in some way, shape, or form, we, the majority of us, the most of us, are out working in some capacity 5 or 6 days a week to earn an income to take care of our families and to manage and steer our households. And so, and unless you are, and I know that there's been an uptick of this in the past few years after, post COVID, that a lot of people are working from home now and working over Zoom and Google Meet and all of Microsoft Teams and all of this, but you're still part of a team. And so the human or in-person interaction may be somewhat less than it was prior to COVID, but yet and still, if you are an employee of some corporation, even if you're working remote, you're still on a team and you can still have conflict issues and still encounter and experience warfare in the workplace, wherever your respective workplaces may be. And so, and it happens, it's inevitable, y'all, because of how much time we actually spend, working throughout the course of our lives. I just got some, random stats here. I probably started working actually when I was 13 or 14, delivering newspapers and working at a summer festival, picking up trash and, that kind of stuff. Working in the mall, in retail, as I got a little bit older, 15, 16. But if you just take into account or take into consideration, if you start working at age 18 and you work until age 65, you're talking about 47 years of our lives where we are working for someone. And if you just strip that down to the bare bones and you say you work 40 hours a week, and all right, I ain't counting overtime, ain't counting if you have a 50 or 60-hour week job, but if you're working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks out of a year, and we just say take into consideration that you get 2 weeks off a year, even though a lot of people don't. But if you work, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks in a year, you're talking about 2,000 hours annually that you are putting in at someone's job and some place of employment, right? Working on somebody else's vision. I ain't even gonna get started into that. That's a different conversation, different episode for a different day, where a lot of times we work harder on someone else's vision than we do our own that God has put into our lives that could empower us so that you can go from being the employee to the employer. Yeah, another conversation for another day. And but and so you're looking at roughly 94,000 hours total over that span of 47 years, 94,000 hours that we've worked at some place. That equates or that equals or boils down to about 4,000 full days if you strip that 94,000 total hours down, or 10 years of nonstop 24-hour work. So it's like the equivalent of 10 years of our life if we were working around the clock, 24 hours nonstop, that we are punching the clock and putting in time at some respective place of employment, right? And that's just what you're doing on the floor or on the job or behind the desk or in front of the computer. That's not even taking into account or to consideration. You having to go to sleep early, get up early. Whatever your commute is like, driving in. You're driving an hour to work, an hour home. If you're in some larger, metropolitan markets, New York City, Los Angeles, Seattle, places that have Atlanta that have horrific traffic. Sometimes you're getting up, hours before you actually have to, you got to be at work at 8 o'clock, but you got to leave the house at 5:30, 6 o'clock because the traffic is so bad. So we're not, so when I say 94,000 hours, 4,000 full days, 10 hours of nonstop 24-hour work. I'm talking about you just punching the clock, just being on the floor at your place of employment working, not taking into consideration your commute, not taking into consideration overtime, not taking into consideration after you clock out of your main job, then you're going to your side job, whether you are Instacarting, Uber Eats, DoorDash, what have you. You are talking about a huge chunk of time in our lives where we are invested into our respective places of work. And so, we work at different places for different reasons, different, whatever that we have. But at the end of the day, the shared or primary reason why most of us work at certain places is because you're trying to earn income, for your, so that you can live, right? You are exchanging your time, for a dollar figure, right? And so when you begin to experience conflict on the job, and there are so many different ways that that definition can be filled. Sometimes a conflict is, boils down to disagreements or misunderstandings, so on and so forth. But there are other times where there are spiritual adversaries, right? Remember the quote from the preacher, principalities working behind or influencing human personalities that are strategically orchestrating events behind the scene. They are like the puppet master pulling strings on the puppets that we see, that we work with, that we share cubicles with, that are in our face. They're pulling these strings to try to bring harm to your financial well-being, your household, your career, your profession, trying to tarnish your name, your reputation, at that place of employment. And that is not accidental. That is not something that just happened by chance. Those things are in many instances strategically designed by the enemy to try to sully your name. The scripture says, I believe in Proverbs, that a good name is better than silver or gold, right? It's a reason why Tina Turner and what in the movie What's Love Got to Do with It said, all I want is my name. And your name or your word is your bond. And so it's just like when the enemy tries to make your word not credible and tarnish your name and jack up your reputation and try to mess up your money all at the same time. Yeah, baby, that is not just some person that y'all don't see eye to eye on some project. Those are adversarial spirits that are seeking to do you harm. And 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 I know that some of the listeners, some of you guys who have subscribed to this podcast, may not share that same viewpoint, same set of values, where you think like, oh, there's no such thing as angels or demons or what have you. And so, you're entitled to your opinion and belief. Those of us who know that there are those things, that those are realities, that we're entitled to our opinion and belief. And I'm just telling you that there is another world, an invisible world that is just as real as the world that we live in. And that invisible world and what takes place in the decisions that take place, the conflicts that take place, all of the things that take place in that invisible world directly affects, is the cause and effect of the world that we live in and the world that we see. And so I want to talk about that so I can try to give you wisdom, strategy, tips, tools on how to navigate sometimes the very challenging and very murky waters that we experience when we start to experience warfare in our respective workplaces. And so I hope that it's a blessing to you and super helpful and beneficial, because one of the worst feelings in the world is you work whatever 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, looking forward to the weekend, have a good time doing whatever you've done that weekend. You've traveled, gone to an event, hung with the guys, hung with the girls, gone to church, spent time with family, been the soccer mom or, football dad or whatever, all and everything in between, grocery store shopping, running errands, all of that, only to at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock on Sunday night start to dread the feeling of, oh my God, man, I have to, get up and go into this place tomorrow, talking about your job and clock in, and knowing that you're not looking forward to it because you have been having all kinds of issues, with a certain person or people, that you work with. And it's not just common disagreements that you guys have worked through. These are lingering hostilities that are now causing major, major issues, not only with friction and things of that nature in the workplace, but also just it's affecting, your sanity and your peace and your temperament and all of that kind of stuff, right? All of these things are factored in, and that is a really crappy place to be in. Nobody likes to deal with with that kind of stuff. I remember I had a boss some years ago. I'm gonna try to change the names to protect the innocent. But it's in my time here in Cincinnati, and I remember the first day that I had to report. I had already been working in this particular corporation at another location, and then I got transferred to this new location. And so first day I show up, or whatever time, I forget what time I had to show up, and And y'all, I'm grown, right? I've been married for years. I done raised kids. I done own property. I done traveled the world. I've done all kind of stuff, right? I ain't no kid. This ain't my first rodeo. Ain't no, kid fresh out of high school, 16, 17, my first job. I've been doing stuff, been in careers, been, running business, all that kind of stuff. And so I show up the first day at work, and I think, say for instance, if I had to be at work at 10 a.m., I'll maybe walk in at 9:57. I don't know the lady who I'm reporting to. I've never met her, but she's in the office dressed up kind of, a business casual. And so I walk in and say, "Hey, so and so, I'm Warren Curry. This is my first day, here, got transferred here. I know you know all that, or just whatever." And do y'all know this woman didn't even turn around? She ain't even acknowledge me. She ain't say nothing. She ain't even make eye contact. She completely ignored me. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And so I said something again. She still didn't respond. And then y'all, she turns her head, kind of rolls her neck, and turns, looks at me and said, "I don't do late." This is how she initially um uh her first interaction with me, right? Not hi, not good morning. Hey Warren, nice to meet you. I'm so and so. Her first interaction in response to the words that I said was, "I don't do late." And I'm like, okay, well, technically I'm not late. I have to be here at 10. It's 9:57. But this was her response. And I knew then, oh Lord, I'm like, Jesus, they didn't transfer me over here. I got the Tasmanian devil as a boss. And so, who wants to work for somebody like that? That's why I've always tried to be, when I'm been in a position of authority over people, in the for-profit world, nonprofit world, I try to be the best boss that I can be. And because nobody want, somebody said a long time ago, people don't quit jobs, they quit their bosses. When you have a crappy boss, you got, people who just, they make work and life and everything hard. And and we spend so much time together working on projects, working in the same place, taking business trips, all of that. Like, who wants to live like that? Don't nobody want to live like that. We want remarkable lives, even in our workplace, even in our respective workplaces. And so I already knew I was going to have some issues with this woman, just based on that initial interaction. And what is that? That's warfare, right? Part of warfare is not just spiritual opposition or resistance that we face, that kind of wages this invisible war against our God-given assignments. That is a big part of warfare, or maybe the definition of warfare. But another thing, a byproduct, if you will, is the mental strain and the anxiety and and the feelings and the emotion and all of the things that are byproducts that come as a result of conflict in the workplace. You know what I'm saying? And so, so I just knew, in that example that I cited, that okay, I'm going to have to take a very measured and calculated approach if this woman, who is this long tenured professional, been in this role as a general manager for many, many years with this company, if this is her initial interaction with a guy that she meets, and I'm one of her, I'm a mid-level manager. I know just whatever. I'm in this, executive training program, mid-level manager. And I come to find out one of the reasons why she was salty was because they had, in order to accommodate my salary at that particular location, they had to move the person that she had kind of personally groomed and trained and trusted and all of that to another location. And I get that, and so she didn't like the fact that this person that she had really loved and poured her life into was just yanked from her and put into another place. And then they give her this new guy that she don't even know. I probably make double the salary that he's making. I'd only been there 90 days. This other guy had been there some years, and I don't know nothing, right? And so I understand part of her gripe, but at the same time, change is inevitable, even in the workplace. And so we have to learn how to adapt, because if we don't, change, it's everything's going to pass us by. Yeah, so warfare is organized resistance, spiritual opposition against your God-given assignment in the respective place where you work. And and I've just learned, y'all, that it is, again, it's not accidental. A lot of times the stuff is strategic, it's intentional, and it's designed to really try to divide your focus, divide your attention, sap you of strength, make you anxious, do all of these things, putting together this coordinated effort to make your work life balance and your work life harder than it actually needs to be. And it just does not have to be that way. Many of us, we understand that if whether you're one income household, two income household, what have you, if you're married, just like, I want to go, I want to do my job, I want to do it well, and then I want to come home, and I don't want to carry the burden, of my work, home with me. I want to be able to check that stuff, the emotions, all of that at the door, and come home so that I can then, punch the clock, so to speak, as a husband or as a wife or as a parent now, or, what have you. You know what I'm saying? Not to be like, being, having your strength sapped because of stuff that unresolved issues that, that you've had, from work or whatever. I know I want to be dealing with that. You know what I'm saying? And so funny because I end up the same woman that ended up being my boss. I forgot. I think I might have worked there 6 months or so before I got shifted to another location. And I told her one day, because she was so mad about something I can't even remember. She walked out. She slammed the door, the door in the place, and I just told her, I was like, "Woman, listen." I said, "I know you rule. You're accustomed to ruling with fear and intimidation. These other little, people, these little managers and whatever." I was like, "I don't roll like that." I said, "I ain't scared of you." You know what I'm saying? I also sit in places of authority, and so I understand what it's like. I'm not, that stuff don't move me. I told her, I said, "I don't even argue with my wife like this. You think I'm finna argue with you?" And she was mad. Yeah, she slammed the door, rolled her neck, rolled her eyes. And I'm talking about, she's older than me, right? Ain't talking about no young person. And she storms out, get in her car, and peels out the parking lot. I could care less. Okay. And so I will share with you, when you experience opposition, with a boss, there's a way that you have to approach that that's different than a direct report, that's different than someone that's a colleague or a peer. It has to be all approached in different ways so that you can, at the end of the day, not only maintain your peace, but ensure, that you are, leaving with integrity and ethically, once your day is done. And so let me just jump into this right quick. So what is warfare designed to do? Warfare is designed to wear you down, to frustrate your focus, to drain your peace, to cloud your discernment, and to push you into emotional decisions, in your environment, right? It just is, I recall, man, I got so many stories, y'all. I'm gonna have to save these. This is the first episode in the new trilogy of episodes, 18, 19, and 20. Warfare in the Workplace. Subscribe so you don't miss these nuggets that I'm going to share over my very lengthy, multifaceted, multi-natured for-profit and not-for-profit career path. All right. And so, but I remember you talking about pushing me into emotional decisions, that there was, in the same location, same organization that I had gotten transferred to. I come in and I'm the number two person in the entire place, just, but just by being transferred there. So I'm over everyone except the general manager. And of course, when you are new to an organization, it doesn't matter your title or your expertise or your tenure. Yes, I know I have authority, but I am going to intentionally submit myself under the workers and other people, because I need them. I need to learn the ins and outs of this particular location. I need them to work for me. I don't rule by fear. You know what I'm saying? And so, I treat people with civility and respect. And so I want them to want to work for Mr. Warren, not not want to work for me and be trying to sabotage, just whatever when I'm, in charge. And so, but I had this one young lady, she was a manager. She was one of my direct reports. And, I was newer to the organization and she wanted to try me. And so I just remember I was in the office one day doing something, and I've probably been there a handful of months. And I don't know what she was saying. She was saying something to the people, like the other staff that was out, like in the floor, on the floor. And I was like, and I just kept hearing they was snickering and laughing. They was like kind of like looking back in the office and glancing. I was like, man, what is they talking about? And so she just kept doing whatever. This is warfare, baby, warfare in the workplace. And she just kept talking crazy, and she was kind of mumbling. And I just like, oh, she might think I'm soft because I'm a pastor, and she was kind of rough around the edges and whatnot. And so I'm just like, okay. And so I'm just like, okay, it ain't, I can't hear what they're saying, but if I can pick up what she's putting down, I'm finna make an example out of her. You know what I mean? And so, because again, this stuff, warfare is designed to wear you down, frustrate you, steal your time, mess with your money, cloud your discernment, all of this stuff, right? And so I was kind of, now I'm listening, and I'm like hearing she's talking, she's mumbling under her breath, she's saying stuff about me to them, right? So the people that she's bad mouthing me to, they directly report to her, but all of them directly report to me. And so I was like, oh, okay, I can't remember what she said, but whatever I heard her say, overheard her say, I was like, yeah, I'm about to clown her. I'm about to write her up, send her home, and embarrass her. And so I was getting ready to get off my shift. I called my wife because I knew that if I sent her home, I was going to have to stay, for her shift. But I had time today. I was going to do that. So I text my wife. I said, "Hey, baby, I'm about to have to work a double. I ain't coming home at whatever 7 or whatever time I was coming, like I thought. I'm about to send this other lady home and yada yada yada." So she was like, "Okay." And so I went out there and I just told her, I was like, "Hey, get your stuff, like, you get up out of here." You know what I'm saying? I said, "Come here, I'm about to write you up." I did that, boom, boom, boom. And she just clowned. She cut up. "You ain't doing nothing. You ain't, whatever." And I was like, "I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you one time only. If you don't leave here voluntarily, you're gonna leave here involuntarily. I'm gonna call the police. I ain't calling the GM. I'm gonna call the Cincinnati police, and they gonna come, and they gonna make you get up out of here. You are gonna get up out of here willingly, voluntarily or involuntarily." And so she got mad, and then she go in the back, and she act all tough, but she started crying because she embarrassed, and everybody else, now they looking and scurrying, and they, trying to work because they thought I was Mr. Nice Guy, because I was pleasant and kind of, I always try to treat people with respect. And so then she go back and she try to call the GM, and then the GM called me, my cell phone. I told her what happened. And of course, the GM lived about an hour away from where we are at. She don't want to come in. I told her, I said, "Yep, I wrote her up. I'm sending her home. I'm staying." I said, "We good. I'm staying. I'm gonna, man the shift until, the next shift comes in and just whatever." I told her what she said and what she did or whatever. And so then the manager who was there that I was sending home was so upset because she had this personal relationship with the GM far longer than I had, with the GM. And I know that none of them really like me, and I could care less because I had favor with the big boss, who was the one that hired me and they actually put me there. And and all of them were scared of him. And that's why you pray. One of the things pray over yourself daily is, "Lord, give me favor with you and with man." And because one day of favor is better than a lifetime of labor. But anyways, and so she got upset that, it seemed like the GM was taking my side. She started crying, and then I escorted her butt to the door. I was like, "You get up out of here." And then she's like, "Oh, we don't come back." And she's talking about she's gonna come back and with some of her people or whatever, and they was gonna jump me in the parking lot afterwards or whatever. I was just like, man, she got life twisted. And I'm not who she thinks that I am. You know what I mean? And so, but all of that stuff, y'all, all of that kind of drama and profanity and chaos and toxicity, all of that stuff, it comes in different varying levels in, our respective work environments. but it is designed to sap you of your strength, try to disrupt your peace, try to knock you off your square. And, we just can't have that. You know what I'm saying? I ain't about to be balled up in no corner. I ain't about to be running, getting on Indeed and on Glassdoor, whatever, looking for no new job. I ain't about to be running out the door. I'm gonna stay right exactly where I'm supposed to be until I'm released from that role by God, not a moment sooner. And so yeah, so that's what warfare is designed to do. That stuff is designed to wear you down and all of that. And so you just can't let it, to the best of your ability, you can't let that stuff, bother you like that. And it's just tripped out, because there's a lot of things in the workplace that are, could be considered, forms of warfare. So much stuff, right? And it'll vary based on your job, your industry, all of that you're in. You know what I'm saying? But there are some common things, a common thread that runs parallel to every industry, that all of us need to be aware of. And if you haven't experienced it, God bless you. I'm super excited for you that you've never had to endure this kind of melodrama. But if you have before, then you about to know exactly what I'm talking about. Once I share these things, so I want to share common forms of warfare in the workplace. This list that I'm about to share is not exhaustive. I know that there's other things that can be added to it, but I'm just going to share some common things that I've seen in my 30 something years, 35, 40 years of working in respective places that are typical in any work environment, irrespective of what that kind of industry or that kind of work is. And so so the first thing that I notice almost immediately is sabotage. That's the first thing. To sabotage means that it's someone who is deliberately seeking to destroy you, damage you, try to obstruct your growth, your progress, your advancement. There are spirits that influence people that really try to sabotage your professional uh, you know uh, prosperity. And we can't have that. We cannot have that. When we sign up for work or we go to these places, we're doing it not so we can stay in what they call a dead end job forever. It's like, no, I'm working here, I'm trading my time for money. There's an expectation that at least annually I'm going to have some consideration for promotion, advancement, or raise or something. But for me to just work the same job for umpteen amount of years, and just be treated as a peon and never have a chance to advance or grow or be developed or nurtured or challenged or trained, cross train, get, bonuses, something like, no, we're not about to do that. You know what I'm saying? And there are people, who are influenced by, spiritual entities that have it out for you, that intentionally try to sabotage, your professional advancement. And so you have to not be naive, concerning matters like this. You have to actually be discerning, so that you can understand exactly what it is that's happening, is going on, so that you don't become a victim of someone else's sabotage. I recall, the same organization that I told the earlier stories about. I'm working for them. Like I said, I got hired by the guy who oversaw the entire region. Just had favor with him. God gave me favor. We were as different as a night and day, but God gave me favor with him, right? And so I got hired in at a super high level, all of this stuff and all of this. And so that ruffled a lot of people's feathers. They didn't like it. And not just in the respective places where I worked, but in the entire business market, business center. And so, I could care less. I'm still gonna be kind and love people and all that. But I recall my in-laws lived in Michigan at the time, and we had gone to Michigan for some holiday, And so we were coming home, my family, me, I was driving with my wife and my children. Like Sunday night, I probably had to be at work on Monday at some point or Tuesday. So we're coming back late Sunday night, driving out of Detroit, Michigan, going south on 75 and, coming into Ohio. And it's late, it's probably after midnight or close to midnight. And all of a sudden, y'all, God is my witness. As I'm driving my SUV, I had a vision open up in the windshield, and I don't have time to really explain. When I say vision open up, not anything that was actually in my glass, but a vision is it is a supernatural manifestation of the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of God that kind of plays out like a movie picture in front of your eyes, and it shows you things. It gives you revelation and insight into things that you just normally you wouldn't have. And so I all of a sudden this vision opens up and I see the guy that hired me, the big boss in his company car, with his seat laid all the way back. I'm gonna lay my seat back for the video version so y'all can see what I'm talking about. Seat laid all the way back like that, um, with his car sitting in front of the subdivision where I live. Right now, this is not happening in real life, but this is a vision that God is trying to reveal to show me something, through this vision that I saw. And so like I see it, and then it dissipates, and I'm like, what is this? What is this that the Lord is trying to tell me? And then I just hear the Lord say, He's watching you. And so I'm like, oh, okay. But I'm like, I ain't doing nothing. And so, but what happened was people in these other places were trying to sabotage me. They're like, oh, yeah, Warren, he always on his phone. I think he told me, because I was pastoring the, Life Changers church, the church that I pastor. And he'd be talking to his parishioners or whatever, which none of that was true. You know what I'm saying? He's doing this and doing that. They were just, these human personalities were being influenced by these demonic principalities. And they were just trying to get me up out of there, and it was the enemy trying to really harm me, not the people per se. And so what I came to find out what happened was, he had an app on his tablet that in every location, in our business center, he could tap into that app and tap into the camera systems in each place, and he can look and he could watch people remotely wherever he was in the country. And so I wasn't doing anything, whatever, but I just thank God for the insight of the Holy Spirit. The Bible says in the book of John that Holy Spirit will show you things to come, and that the Lord revealed that and showed that to me so that I could be on my P's and Q's, and watching out for, as the old rap song said, these G's and fools, these people that's trying to sabotage your boy and take me out and trying to mess with my money and my influence and, tarnish my name, on the thing, you know what I'm saying? And, as they are, working in conjunction with, unknowingly, I would guess I give them that much credit, not like they saying they knowing what they're doing, but unknowingly working with these demonic entities to try to cut my professional tenure off at the knee, you know what I'm saying, prematurely. And they were deliberately trying to do this and, sowing discord and doubt and all of that kind of stuff, trying to make it seem like his hire was a bad hire, and so that's one of the common forms of workplace warfare in the workplace is sabotage, and it can manifest in various ways. It can look like people withholding information from you, like y'all working on a group project, and this person got this part, you got this part, you got this part, and they, everybody doing a part, but it's some part that's common to the project, and everybody else know, but you don't know it. You know what I'm saying? They trying to make you look bad when y'all do your presentation in front of the board, right? So it can look like information being withheld, deadlines changing without notice, and nobody communicating that. And sometimes they do that kind of stuff on purpose, removing resources, from you, or blaming you for outcomes that you had nothing to do with, right? So there's so many different ways that a person can be sabotaged and all of that. I'm just telling you, be watchful, be prayerful, so that the enemy doesn't have his way with you, on your job or in your career. So that's the first thing, sabotage. Let me hurry up. Second thing is surreptitious behavior. The first common form of warfare in the workplace is being sabotaged. The second thing is surreptitious behavior. The word surreptitious is just a fancy word for doing something sneaky, doing something under the radar, doing something in a clandestine fashion. So, like for example, when military, the U.S. military, when they are on a clandestine operation and they're trying to get behind enemy lines undetected so that they can garner information on what the enemy is doing, they may parachute out of a plane at 2 in the morning in the dark, night vision goggles on, just whatever. What are they doing? They are being sneaky and sneaking behind enemy lines, and so that disposition or that attitude is what you call being surreptitious. And so there are some people that we work with, that we have lunch with, that we have coffee with, conversation over the water cooler with, that are engaging and involving themselves in surreptitious behavior in the workplace, about us. You know what I'm saying? They got our names in their mouth, or they doing all kind of stuff or whatever. And so different ways that this manifests, and I'll share other stories in some of the other episodes, because I don't want this initial episode to be no hour and a half. But so what I'll share, because I have a ton of personal stories just over my career. And surreptitious behavior, this is how it can manifest: decisions made inside conversations. Another way is the meeting after the meeting. Y'all all together in a meeting for whatever, and then you come out the big meeting with everybody, and then little pockets of people get together and have the meeting after the meeting. Like they're trying to undermine the authority of or the decision or whatever that was just made, in that public meeting with all the team members. And so that's one way that it happens. And then another way is this, agendas that you were never informed about. And there's so many different ways, so many different examples that can be cited surrounding this kind of stealthy, secretive behavior. But just be alert, be sober, be discerning, be aware that this kind of stuff, conversations be happening behind your back all the time, and you may not even be aware that these things are happening. Ask the Lord to reveal and to show you, and He will. And so that's the second thing. The third thing is smear campaigns. Smear campaigns. I remember a long time ago, when I lived in Wisconsin, I worked at this call center with this global leader in telecommunications industry. I started in a kind of not a necessarily entry level job. It was like a techie job, and was making decent money doing it. Did that for maybe 18 months, 20 months or something. I can't remember. And then I got promoted, and I got promoted. So same center, different department, and not the department that I was hired into. I had a team of 24 direct reports, and so it was great. Life was grand. That job, got a raise, all of that. My wife is home, that we were young. Yeah, I was probably like not early, late 20s, early 30s. I'm 51 now. We bought a house off that job, bought a brand new car off that job. We, had our one child at the time, and then we had twins after that. So, I mean, it was like life was good. You know what I'm saying? And so I get promoted, and all of a sudden I get called into the office one morning, like on a Monday morning, and I come in and I could just feel, I'm like, okay, my direct boss here, the big boss that oversees the whole center, she's here. And then this other guy, we had this other department called asset protection, right? And there's kind of like, if somebody doing something, you need to make an anonymous tip, you can call that number and they fly in from, wherever, and, come do the investigation. And so he was there. And so I actually knew him because I was actually working on a case with him with one of my direct reports, because she had committed forgery basically and lied on some paperwork. I had to fire her, but because it was a unionized um, organization, the union was trying to fight to keep her job, even though she had engaged in fraudulent behavior. And so I had been working with him on that termination as they were going through arbitration and all of that. And so I understood who he was, right? And so when I get called in on Monday, I'm thinking, oh, this is what we're here for. But then when I'm looking around the room, you can just feel the energies off. People's heads are kind of down. And I'm like, this isn't what we're here for. I'm like, what's going on? Right. And so, and then I felt the supernatural peace of God just come on me and just the Lord say to me, this not them, this me. This just is going to be okay. And so basically what happened was there was retribution that had taken place because I had fired that girl, that a smear campaign had emerged, not only with some of my direct reports, but also other people that were in that department. And they started scrounging the internet trying to find information on me to, smear my name to find whatever kind of mud they can sling on me to, hopefully get me fired. And they were actually successful in doing so. They had dug up my past, which I, very open and candid and honest about my past. And I don't lie on applications. I've said on the application, what I got into trouble for, when I was, younger and, and all of that. But they end up finding something, a fight that when I was in college, I got into a fight in college, gone to jail for probably 4 hours, got bailed out and got a ticket for disturbing the peace. And then once that semester was over, I don't think I went back. And not because of that, I just didn't go back to school there. I transferred, went to school in my hometown. And so and I had been gone from there for years. Well, that just $200 disturbing the peace citation or ticket had become an open bench warrant. These people, whoever they were, found that, reported it to that asset protection department, began to smear my name. When asset protection reran my background, it looked like I had intentionally omitted that information from my application. And so when they called me in, they fired me on that technicality. They said, "Oh, we got to let you go." And I said, "Well, why would I lie about that? I've been to prison and I did all the drug stuff or whatever. I would put that on my application, but I would omit disturbing the peace, an altercation." They're like, "Yeah, Warren, we know, just yada yada yada, but because it was, the application was falsified, we got to let you go." Right? What happened? Right? I actually ended up getting terminated because of a smear campaign. And so you have to be mindful and aware of stuff like this that happens in the workplace when people, coworkers, and it can happen with people you directly report to, people that are your peers, or people that report to you. It can happen on all three sides. And so you got to be mindful of that smear campaign. The smear campaign is a plan, a dubious, intentional plan to discredit a person by making false or dubious accusations, diabolical accusations, finding out stuff so they can try to smear your name. And so that's why it's important to have a good name and, live beyond above reproach and to try to do everything above board. So when a person tries to smear you, it has nothing to stick to. Right. And so, ways this manifests in the workplace, they can question your motives, question your work ethic, all kind of stuff. And so you just have to be careful about that. All right. The fourth area where common forms of warfare in the workplace. First one is sabotage. Second is surreptitious behavior. The third is smear campaigns. The fourth is stagnation. And stagnation is just a situation where we used to say, when I used to work for this one organization, where, oh, such and such, they are stuck in the system. Certain companies, certain organizations, certain systems are intentionally designed to develop, train, acquire talent, develop, train them, raise them up, move them on, and promote them. And but if there are deficiencies in the character or in the conduct or in the person's, work, work, they may not be up for consideration to move forward, and so they become stuck or they stagnate. And there are times where that happens, because we're trying to still kind of, get our bearings and figure stuff out. And hopefully the organization that you work for, that they have tools and resources and things available that help to develop you so you can move forward. But then there are other times where there are bosses and people that are intentionally trying to shut you out, not giving you opportunity to work on projects, giving you menial tasks and subservient roles, trying to just always keep you down, knowing that you look the part, you do the work, you go above and beyond, to help people, to serve people, to do all of that. But yet and still, they would rather prefer to try to, promote someone else while, holding you down. You just have to remember that and be encouraged and know that promotion doesn't come from man, it comes from the Lord. And so even when people try to close the door on you, you just have to remember God opens the door that no man can shut. And so he can find ways to navigate around people who sit in seats of influence that are intentionally trying to keep you stuck, try to keep you underdeveloped, trying to keep you, where you just can't grow, keep you in a dead end job. And that's and you just have to just put your trust in God, do the work, get developed, all of that kind of stuff, however you can, so that you can move forward, with your career and not be stagnated. And here's what it looks like real quick. People can give you promises with no follow through. Oh, we got you up for. We're about to create a role. We're about to do all of this. Just whatever. Or endless waiting with no explanation. You see other people. They got hired with you, get promoted. They got hired behind you, get promoted, all of that, and you not promoted. Okay, something's wrong with that picture, and there's nothing wrong with you asking questions about that so you can get a better understanding of actually what's going on in the organization. So that's stagnation. And then the fifth and final thing is scapegoating. Scapegoating is defined as a person who's blamed for wrongdoings, mistakes, or faults of others, especially for personal reasons. And so what this can look like in the workplace. They can blame you for, system or operations failing. You can, pressure could be applied to you from poor leadership decisions. Like I remember one time I was working at this other place and I worked directly under the owner. He had hired me as kind of like the general manager for this thing. And it's here in Ohio, and it's a cold weather state, right? Okay, it's not cold like some parts of the country, but we still, get snow, get ice, all, so on and so forth. And so I remember somebody had pitched him a business. It's like, hey, we got these new things, new technology, tankless water heaters. They don't even have to go inside of the store. They can be outside, anchored on the wall. Yeah, yada, 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 yada. And these things were expensive. It was a new technology, just whatever. Our water heater was kind of dated. And of course, it's a thing we're serving thousands of people a week. And so and so he let the guy talk him into, getting one installed. And I was just like, hey, I was like, you should, I know it's your money, it's your restaurant, your everything, but do you think that it's wise to have this tankless heater bolted on or installed on the outside of this building? Right? We don't live in Arizona. This ain't Georgia. This ain't Texas. This ain't Florida. This is Ohio. It get cold, right? That thing can freeze up. It's water, right? We need water. Our patrons need water, so on and so forth. And it's like, yada yada yada. I was like, okay, it's your money. You do what you want to do. And of course, he did it. Something happened. I can't remember if the thing froze up, broke or something happened. Not many months after it was installed, and then people were trying to blame me. It was one decision. I was like, no, I tried to advise him, that he shouldn't do that, but he rejected my advice, and so hey, it's your rodeo. You do what you want to do, and he had to end up suing the company and all that kind of stuff. All of that could have been avoided if he had a simply heeded the counsel that I gave him. I ain't got no skin in this game. I'm just trying to, I'm here, I'm working under your leadership. I'm here to serve you and try to make your organization better. And you're bypassing why that's why one of the reasons why you hired me. You told me you needed a leader. So I'm leading your organization. And so I'm like, hey, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And you did it anyway. And now you end up with years of litigation and all these legal fees and all of this because you didn't heed sound advice and sound counsel. And so just be mindful of the scapegoating, as well as it pertains to, common forms of warfare in the workplace. All right. And I'm going to stop right here, and I've got some other stuff on how to win the war at work. And maybe I'll share, maybe that'll be the next episode on how you can kind of overcome some of this stuff and deal with some of the stuff, these common forms of warfare in the workplace that we face. And so maybe I'll share that in the next episode so you can have, those tips on how to implement those things, to get these folk up off your back on your job. And so let me just leave you with this. I know that, many of us, we take pride in the work that we do, the places where we work, the people we serve, the hours we put in. A lot of us, regardless of whether chose that profession intentionally or you ended up there unintentionally, whatever our hands have found to do, we do it unto the glory of God. But we realize that, even though that might be our purpose and our intention, that's not everyone's. We don't always share the same passions. And so if you are in a place now and you are being, unfairly treated, persecuted, because of whatever, the disagreement or the dissension or whatever might be, just know that God sees you. If, when you pray, know that God hears you, and trust that God will give you wisdom and strategy on how to navigate the sometimes tumultuous waters that are raging in our respective workplaces. And that God is no respecter of persons. In the same way that God was with me and helped me navigate and showed me things to come and all of that, He'll do that for me. He's done that for countless others. He will also do that for you as well. And so just be encouraged. Try not to be discouraged. I'll maybe talk about it in the future in one of the final two episodes on, when you can kind of tell when your time is up, when the grace is lifted, when it's time to move on, how to do that respectfully, how to make sure that you are having seamless transitions from one place to the next, that you don't get so worked up in your emotions that you just like, hey, I'm out of here, right? No, you still got bills to pay. You got, people to feed at the house, all of that. So we're going to be responsible, and we still going to hold the fort down, while we are looking to transition. And so I'll share some stuff with that too in one of the future episodes for this first season in. So love you guys. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in again to the Remarkable Life podcast. Just remember that growth isn't about perfection. It's about intention. Subscribe on Substack for bonus content, and don't miss next week's episode. It'll be a good one, y'all. All right. Take care. God bless. Love you guys. And have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Remarkable Life podcast. Remember, growth isn't about perfection. It's about intention. Subscribe on Substack for bonus content, and don't miss next week's episode.